Okay, so this is lesson two that we are starting today. Let's take a look at our learning targets and success criteria. So, our learning targets, we are learning how to simplify integer expressions and apply integer rules. And then our success criteria is I can add and subtract integers. I can identify and apply integer rules. I can evaluate integer operations using real world application. So, the very beginning, you guys are going to go ahead and copy down the learning target and success criteria, but you will be doing that from lesson one. So their learning goal says, let's just add signs. Remember, our focus is on adding and subtracting integers. So their learning target states that I can use a number line to add positive and negative numbers. So this very first warm up or this very first activity, you have four different number lines, and so you are trying to figure out. It's asking which pair of arrows doesn't belong. So there's no right or wrong answer here. um it just you have to come up with a reasoning. So if you say arrows one, what's different from the number line from one to two? Or if you say two, what's the difference from there? If you say three, what's the difference from there? If you say four, what's the difference from there? So for example, you could say arrow three, or you can say number line three. And the reason you can say that is because they're going the exact same distance but opposite directions. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. Whichever number you pick between one and four, you just gotta state why you state that that set of arrows does not belong. All right. So now it says that the temperature is at 40 degrees and increase 10 degrees. What will be the final temperature? And again, they kind of already gave you the display, so you're just gonna answer this question for the next one. All right. So on this particular slide, I'm gonna go ahead and blow it up because it's a little bit hard to see. You have to do two things. You want to complete the chart and then draw a number line this uh, diagram for each situation. So they gave you the first one. So we're starting at positive 40 degrees. Your change is going to be 10 degrees warmer. So the question is, when they say warmer, that means that you're going to add. If it say colder, that means you should be subtracting. And then so they showed you the final degree will be 50. So this column, you're going to put the final answer. And then right here, you're going to show the equation. So if you add, you're going to show 40 plus 10. The next one, they told you starting at 40, but it's 5 degrees colder. So in this situation, you're going to subtract. So once you fill in this chart, A through E or B through E, you're going to uh, copy the scenarios on a number line. So remember, on this first one, we started at 40. So I will go from 0 to 40. And remember, we're adding 10 degrees because it got 10 degrees warmer. Can I change my colors? Let's see. And then from here, from 40 to 10. So again, this is how you would go ahead and complete the number lines. And you would do the same thing for B, C, and D. And then it's the same situation here. The only difference is you starting at a negative 20. So if I start at a negative 20 degrees and I got 30 degrees warmer, remember warmer means you're adding and colder means you're subtracting. And you're going to, again, write your final answer here, show the equation in the fourth column, and then you're going to simulate that on using the number lines. So then these questions is asking you, how can we represent an increase in temperatures on a number line? How can we represent a decrease? So based off of the number lines that you guys completed on the prior two slides or the prior two questions, it should be easy to answer these questions. The next one says, how are positive numbers represented on the number line? How are negative numbers represented? And then finally, it says, how can we represent a sum of two numbers? And then again, you'll answer these questions as well. How can we determine the sum of a number line? And what happens when we add a positive number to another number? And then what happens when you add a negative number to another number? So really, you need to look at whether you think that values are increasing or decreasing with those last two questions. Here are some other scenarios, guys, where they're actually using real life applications. So on a winter day, the temperature in Houston is 8 degrees Celsius. Find the temperature in these other cities and explain the show. So we're starting at 8 degrees here. And then each scenario changes. So this one says it's 10 degrees warmer than Houston. Question two says it's 8 degrees colder than Houston. Question three says it's 20 degrees colder than Houston. So if your starting temperature is 8, you're going to show the difference or the sum between the Houston, the city of Houston, and whatever the new city is. And then finally on 5, it says write an addition equation that represents the relationship between the temperature in Houston and the temperature in Fahrenheit. So on this one, you're actually going to give an equation versus 1 through 4, you're just giving an actual solution. Okay, so it says which situation this activity does this number diagram represents. So I would remember that you with a number line you already starting at 0. So we started at 0, we went up to 8, and then from 8 we went down to -12. So which situation this activity does the number line represent? So is it what happened? Did it increase? Did it decrease? What actually happened? Looking at this number line, what addition equation is represented in the diagram? So what's being added, and then it says what equation do you write for the last question in this activity? And then finally, this is the lesson synthesis. How can you represent an increase or a decrease in temperature using an addition equation? And then finally, how do you represent an addition equation on the number line? So this is kind of the closing. So after you went through all of the questions in this particular packet or in your slides, the question, what did you basically learn from it when it comes to addition and subtraction and also using number lines? And then same thing here. They want you to write a story about temperatures that this expressions can be represented. So we got 27 plus a -11. So it's a bunch of different ways you can do this. My example would be because I can't say Atlanta is never that cold. So in Cleveland, Ohio, it was 27 degrees, and then it got colder by 11 degrees. So that's one way that you can write this story, but it's a bunch of different ways. And then finally, question 2 is asking you to just draw a number line looking at this particular scenario. So on Tuesday at lunchtime, it was 29 degrees Celsius. By sunset, the temperature had dropped to 16 degrees. So it's asking you to draw a number line to represent the situation and then write an expression that will also represent the situation. So it's two questions that you're answering here. And then the asynchronous work in the packet is slightly different. If you guys are doing a PowerPoint, you would just complete these 3 problems. And if you're doing the actual packet, then you'll complete the following pages until you get to lesson 3. But this is how you guys would complete lesson 2. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to ask me.